So it transcribes all conversations and takes those raw transcripts, and it uses AI to summarize, pull out action items, automatically remind you about things that might be time sensitive. For example, if I say, I'm going to send you that pitch deck later today, I just said that, I'm going to get a reminder about that. We have a bunch of other features on top of that to make it more useful, but the essence of it is we take ambient audio data, we passively collect it, and we turn it into business value.
Welcome, builders, to How Would You Build It? The podcast that dives deep into the dynamic world of startups and product creation right here in South Africa and Africa. This show is more than just interviews. Every week, we sit down with the brilliant minds to provide a masterclass for building digital products amidst the challenges and opportunities unique to our continent. From seasoned founders to dynamic product managers, we uncover the unique stories and strategies behind some of the most innovative digital products being built. So for all the aspiring founders and product builders out there, you'll discover that each episode is a wealth of practical wisdom and local and actionable insights. Make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to our podcasts and connect with us on social media for even more content. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, builders, to another episode of How Would You Build It? It's episode 64, and we're recording at a very different time because we've got a guest all the way from the US joining us. But to start off, Rainier, good evening. How are you doing today?
How's it, Bobby? Freaking cold in Cape Town, but we will.
Jeez, we're getting bashed, eh? Like proper bashed. Another Cape of Storms winter. And then to introduce our guest, Shai, all the way from San Francisco. Welcome. How are you doing this morning?
It is afternoon. Actually, I guess technically still morning. It's 20 to 12. And yeah, doing great. Thanks, man. Excited to chat and catch up. And
cool. You've got some interesting stories, and I'm looking forward to diving into all of it. You've got quite a story from starting startups in Cape Town, packing your bags, heading over to the US and starting all over again and joining this massive AI trend that's going on. And we're going to dive into that as we go in. But I'm really excited to hear your stories. I started stalking you on Twitter, watching your journey from leaving Cape Town, packing up your stuff and landing up in San Francisco and building up your brand and all of that. So many things to unpack. But first and foremost, Shai, could you just tell us about your first startup? You sold it to, you exited to Yoko, which is one of our darlings in South Africa. Can you tell us about that story?
yeah, absolutely. So in my first year of university doing computer science, I met this guy named Max, who Rainier knows, but Max was like one of the smartest people maybe on the planet. And I met him and I was like, and he's also incredible, like super nice, super funny. So I was like, cool, I just want to spend a lot of time with him because I want some of those traits to rub off. And so Max and I just started hanging out, and he also had like really good business intuition, and we'd brainstorm and stuff. And one day we just decided that we were going to start a company. And it started out like very casual. We were like, let's just try make $10,000. Like it wasn't even a company. We were like, let's just try make money. And Max and I ended up leaving lunch where we had this idea and going door to door, selling websites to restaurants and random businesses in Kloof Street in Cape Town. And we made no sales. We were like, had our little backpacks on and walking around, and we made no sales that way. But that was like our first day working together. And from there, we refined our sales strategy. We ended up meeting, smart people along the way, like Rainier, who had like actually scaled businesses like this before. And basically built it into a less of an agency and more of like a dev house. So what we would do is we would find the smartest engineers in Africa, so Cape Town, Nigeria, Kenya, like all around Africa, and we would find projects in the US and the UK, and we would make kind of like perfect matches. And our kind of like value prop to the engineers was we can build a really cool culture, even though we weren't a startup, but we felt like a startup. And so they really liked the culture. And then to the companies, we just had great engineers. They were like shipping good work. So built that for 3 years, ended up having kind of like a small exit to Yoko and joined to do product there.
Okay. So we share a product line, which is great.
Yes.
But what I love about the story, Shai, and actually it's going to come out in the rest of your story as well, is like how, you speak about like, hey, let's just go out and do it. And I think that's how we kind of met. And obviously the startup you're in now is also something that kind of came about that way. It's like if you just go out and build stuff, then other things happen, which wasn't the original plan, but it opens the door. I remember you calling me about someone that was engaging us. It was a previous client of yours, and you're like, "Hey, this guy still owes us money," and we're like, "Hey, we're running a accelerator program. Do you want to come join us for the other startup that you're working on?" And you ended up joining our program, and we became friends, and then a lot of other things came out of that. So I think that's beautiful. Would you say that's a good tip for someone to do, to just dive in and build anything, and then go as the wind blows?
100%. I think like the biggest thing I think about is like luck surface area. And the only way to increase your luck surface area is to call random people, and be like, hey, I saw your name on this thing, and just like, I think that has led to a bunch of interesting things happening that like I didn't expect to happen. And then for sure, like you never know where a product is going to end up. And I'm sure Bobby can relate to this from like a product perspective. You start thinking that it's going to look like this, and it ends up looking very, very different. And if you didn't start, you would have just you wouldn't have ended up where you end up. So definitely, bias for action is like super important, at least for my like journey so far.
I love the concept of creating that luck surface. I was chatting to someone about it just the other day. Such a great concept, and walking around, meeting people, restaurants and stuff. That's you doing that. That's such a great story. So how long did you do that for? And what was the biggest lesson? I mean, I'm sure you got rejected a lot because the concept was like, no, leave us alone. It's not important to us right now. Like, I'm sure you've got some cool scar tissue there to share.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the door-to-door sales was really fun, and it increases your rejection tolerance. Like it's very extreme, and then everything else feels easy because being told no to your face versus like someone ignoring your email, it's like nothing. So you start to build like this really high tolerance for rejection. But yeah, I mean, we did that like maybe 1, 2 days. We were like, okay, maybe we probably should have done it longer. It probably would have led to one sale. But we just very quickly moved on to cold emails, cold calls. And then our first sale was actually just from like an Instagram post. I made a post on my story with a typo in it saying, hey, I make websites now, with a photo of like pasta, literally like just Napolitana pasta as the background photo. And that ended up getting sent to someone who ended up becoming a client. And that's
Nice.
like made our first sale. Yeah.
I love those stories. So you then obviously decided you've sold up. You kind of had the success story, which a lot of founders kind of look at, right? So we talk about it a lot on the podcast. You build to exit. Why did you then plan to go to Silicon Valley? I mean, we know it's the breeding ground for startups, but what was your motivation, and what was that like? I'm going to go and do this. What was that? Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, for sure. So there were like a couple important moments that led to me actually just like hopping on the plane. But I mean, I think the foundational thing was like I had a bit of imposter syndrome where I was like, first of all, like I don't view the first company as like wildly successful at all. Like it was actually not that big. It was like not that big of an exit. It was like I'm really grateful for everything that happened. And it was like I don't regret anything, but there are way more successful people, way more successful company. Like I didn't feel like I'd made it at all. So there was definitely an element of like I feel like I still need to prove a lot to myself. And then the moments that led to me actually making the leap. I remember like this one time I was talking to my friend Mike, and he was just like, yeah, you should go and like spend all your money and like live in the US and try build a startup there. And I was like, I'd never thought about that. I was like, the US is expensive. There's a visa issue. Like I could never get a US visa. I had like rejected the idea. It wasn't even an option really for like a long period of time. And I needed someone to just ask me that question, like, like what would happen if you ran out of money in the US? And like that, what would you do? And then I kind of like came up with a plan. I was like, oh, I would just do this, I'd stay on this couch, I'd do that. And sometimes those questions like are really helpful. Renia actually has asked me before kind of questions like that around like launching a product. Like we were kind of scared to launch a product. And Renia was like, what's going to happen if you launch and it fails? Like, oh, well, we can just sell it to someone else or we can fix it. And just like going through that line of thinking of like what happens if it doesn't go well, and then being like, oh, it's actually fine. The worst case scenario is not that bad. So that conversation with my friend Mike, one of those moments, many other moments along the way. But like ultimately, I just knew I wanted to build something really big, and I felt like I hadn't done that yet, and was really excited about things I was seeing in kind of like AI, and all the AI products I was using were built like right here. So I was like, cool, I should go meet these people and try figure out what's happening.
But I love that, Shai, because also, the one side is the stoic approach of just going, what's the worst that can happen? But then on the other side, actually going, I'm taking all my money from my exit. I'm actually going to spend it to do the next thing, is saying, you're betting the farm. And just for context, I mean, at the age you're at, it probably still makes sense because you still have, you don't have too many responsibilities, and you can make that kind of bet. But there's something about that bet that actually then says, cool, I'm all in. I'm here to make it work, right? And that did you feel like that changed your, with how much urgency you approached what you were doing, and pushed you out of your comfort zone more than it would have had you not put the farm on the line, as it were?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you can like create chaos in your life and create artificial urgency, you will succeed quicker. And like that's kind of what I did, is like I had no urgency in Cape Town. Like I had a job, I had savings, and there was no reason to like need to succeed in the next 3 months. I could have taken 5 years to like start getting somewhere. But in the US, like my money didn't go that far. Like you need to actually succeed, you need to get a visa. Like there were definitely things that yeah, things that like made me kind of stressed me out and then made me like work a bit faster.
Yeah, Simon Sinek's start with why. You quickly hurry up and find that why. You gotta
Yeah,
sort it out quick sticks.
You got no time for why. You just go. Just do the next thing. Keep on doing the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So Shai, I mean, it feels, I don't know what time feels like anymore, but AI just hit us like a sack of potatoes, like boom, all of a sudden it's there and it's everywhere. It was really quick. Can you tell us what's the current vibe? I mean, we can see the little @ sign behind you. You're in San Francisco right now. You're obviously at a WeWork.
yeah.
Yeah, tell us what's the vibe? What's the talk of the corridors there?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think when I first arrived here, the only mainstream consumer AI product, like generative AI product, was ChatGPT. And it was like people were using it for random things like writing, and they were using it for work, they were using it for companionship. Since then, like it feels like every product is now in some way like leveraging generative AI. And so what's been really cool is you meet people and they're working on a totally different business, but for the first time you can actually learn a lot from everyone, because everyone's working on the same underlying technology. We all use the same APIs. We're all trying to take a bunch of data, do something useful with it, and structure it in a certain way, retrieve it in a certain way. So like that's been the biggest benefit for me, is like I can go into this office next to me and they're definitely using the same API as me, probably, and I can like ask them questions. And but I mean the adoption has been crazy. The outside of generative AI, there's like Waymo self-driving cars that's now publicly available to everyone in SF. I can 5 minutes, it'll take 5 minutes longer than an Uber, but right now I can just call a car and there will be no driver and it will take me home. And like that's crazy. So parts of it feel very futuristic, and then other parts of it, it's like the same as Cape Town. It's like you go to a coffee shop, you still have to like kind of wait in line and pay, and it's like it's behind in certain ways and
So,
ahead in
so,
others.
so,
Yeah.
shy question: has someone built a startup yet that actually replaces the conversation you'll have with the Uber driver if you're driving in a self-driving car?
That is a good
There
idea.
must there must be someone working on that right now.
That's true.
That's
But
that's
speaking of
her.
that, like what are some of the craziest things you've seen or heard about people they building using AI?
Dude, there's some crazy stuff. I mean, the like the obvious evolution of like, AI chat is like AI relationships, AI girlfriends, that kind of stuff. So tons of people are building AI companions that go beyond, just like friendship. They go quite deep. they're romantic, they're like sexual. I mean, that's kind of like maybe not super surprising, but like, yeah, people are working on that. I mean, someone messaged me the other day saying that he's in the AI wearable space, and I replied and I was like, "Oh, cool! Like we should chat." He's like, "Yeah, I'm building an AI wearable for pets," and like, so like people are building everything, which is really funny. So I think, yeah, I think we're going to see some really interesting products.
Wearable on the pet. I would love to understand. I mean, if it could talk to me, I mean, I look at my dog every day going, "What are you thinking? Tell me now." If you could do that, even if you make it up, I'll
I'm
probably still buy
I'm I'm not convinced, Bobby. I don't want to hear my dog talk.
it. Squirrel. Yeah.
Food.
Yeah, I think what's the general sentiment? So, Netflix kind of showed me that Terminator 2 was going to be taken off as the libraries, and I was like, I got to watch that before take it off. And it just got me thinking about AI. And now you're talking about how people are using AI for relationships with his her. How many times has a movie told us what the future is going to look like? I mean, so can you like, what's the sense? Is that kind of stuff happening, or people talking about, what? Like, I mean, I'm far-fetched movies, but in general, like, what is the sentiment around AI at the moment, besides what they're just working on right now?
I mean, I think it's split, right? It's like you have people who are there's like this movement called EAC. I'm not sure if you've been following it. It's like effective accelerationism. And the philosophies around that movement is like we need technology to accelerate, we need to create more energy, we need to kind of like create more growth. And that's like pretty capitalist, and it's pretty it's pretty forward thinking in terms of like tech. And the philosophy is like this stuff is actually going to help with a lot of other things. So if we accelerate and we keep building stuff, it's actually going to solve a lot of the world's problems. Then you have this other sect, which are people that are actually really scared of the technology taking jobs, consuming more energy, creating more emissions. So you have these like two sects, and what that looks like is you have kind of like half the population catching a Waymo, working in tech, earning a good salary, and then you've got half the population struggling, middle class, like, it's tough in any city. And then I mean, you see people lash out. Like there are people that burn down Waymos, the self-driving cars. Like right around the corner from my house, people literally put a firework in a self-driving car because it's taking people's jobs. So there's activism on that front. There's protests, pause AI. But then there's the kind of like I would say dominant narrative is, we need to continue to build, we need to win geopolitically, we need to win the AI race versus, like China, etc. So it's definitely split, but extreme on both ends for sure.
Mm. Do you use AI for your CEO product strategies?
Honestly, I use AI for everything. Like I would say AI has written like 80% of the code that I've shipped in the past year.
Yeah.
And I mean it helps with my like emails and everything.
How refreshing that a developer actually admits that, like locally,
I
like
love
goes,
it.
oh no, we're not doing, oh no, no, you can't trust the code. I'm like, all of you guys are lying. You're like flipping in, you switching between ChatGPT and what's the other one, Anthropic
Yeah.
and Gemini, checking where you can get the best code, and you just make small edits and paste.
Yeah. And then bill for 10 hours of work.
Yeah.
But listen, it's really just so I mean, I had to hook up a whole freaking API thing of a newsletter, and I never would have been able to do it without ChatGPT. I'm like, I need you to look at the API documentation of this thing, and it's like, I know it by heart. What do you want to know? Like, and then I tell him what I want to do, and literally take screenshots and paste it in there, and it tells me now of the error. And it goes, I can see in the error, this is what's wrong. It's incredible. Jeez, I think for stuff like APIs, it's like there's nothing better. You'll be an idiot if you don't use it.
Mm. Just
It's the
question.
end of API documentation.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. It makes me wonder, like, how fast innovation should be going, even in South Africa and Africa.
But it's interesting, Bobby, because it's what it's doing, which from an economic perspective, and I'm not an economist, but you can just imagine if people can do substantially more work because they're using AI, they're more productive, so they're generating more
Totally.
value.
Hmm.
So it'll help the economy grow, right? how are we going to make sure everybody has a job in the future? That's a different problem. And, you know, thank goodness I'm not a politician, because that's a complicated thing to solve. But it might actually be the thing that's preventing the post-COVID recession, right? Because a lot of people are saying now it's Taylor Swift that's preventing it with all her shows.
Swiftism.
I don't think that's the case, but it might literally be as simple as, you know, just developers, like software developers might be 60% more productive because they're using AI and they're generating more value, and that's literally saving the economy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's
that's
a
an interesting theory.
there's an argument for your pro-capitalist AI bros.
It's also like creating more companies, right? Like there are many people that I've met that have only been able to code and launch products because of AI. Like they have been so terrified to learn how to code and launch their first product. But now that they have this thing that can literally answer all their dumb questions that they would be like scared to ask, it's like creating more builders, and that creates more jobs. And so at least in the short to medium term, I agree that I think there's going to be a ton of growth.
Mm. So Shai, just before we move on, I mean, you had your first startup, which was Everything Bagel, and we'll dive into that. But for a person or a company that's maybe in a scale-up phase, that wants to incorporate AI, what does that look like? Because we were talking about it the other day, like, you know, how ready is your data set? So if you want to use your own data to feed the AI, can you just tell us what that landscape looks like for somebody that's, you know, got a startup or whatever, in a position, any sort of product manager that wants to start utilizing an LLM, you know, with the company's data or whatever it is? What does that look like?
For sure. Yeah. So I guess the thing I would say is like it depends how big, right? Because like there's certain companies that have pretty prohibitive policies. I mean, there's certain enterprises that don't let you use like the best AI models because they're scared of data privacy and stuff. So and then some of them have partnerships. Like I know PwC has like Chat PwC, which is built on top of OpenAI's API. And so I mean, there are ways to use it. And I would say like if you're in a corporate, like find out first of all, honestly, I would ignore the policies, which is maybe controversial, but it is going to make you twice as good at your job. So I would like take the data privacy risk as if your company doesn't let you use AI. And generally, generally like these companies, I tend to trust them. But in terms of like finding the right models or the right products for your company, it's just got to be experimenting. So like, and for your use case, you have to have a curious experimental mindset. Every time a new model drops, every time a new product launches, just spend 5 minutes, click, it's all sign in with Google. You don't have to, click to sign in with Google, just try it out. And I mean, they're really interesting verticalized like versions of ChatGPT. For example, like Julius AI. I don't know if you've tried that. That's like a data science. It's like ChatGPT, but very much focused on writing and executing code to process data. So you can upload, huge CSVs and then say like, give me like analyze this data, and it will actually perform what a intermediate data scientist would do. It would kind of perform all those tasks. And so I would say like see if someone is really focused on solving your problem, because that will just make everything easier. But if you want to go with like the general like models and stuff, you just have to experiment and be very curious.
Love that. So tell us about Everything Bagel. Like, did you go in experimenting, and like, what was the first lessons? Like, cool, let's embrace AI. What was that experience like?
For sure. So Everything Bagel was like that was the first AI product, the second AI product I built, but like the first one that I actually like launched and like invested time and money into and stuff. But the idea was, what if you could take all of your data, so your whole digital footprint, all your Tinder swipes, every song you've listened to on Spotify, and you kind of put it into one big centralized repository, which we would call your Everything Bagel, and used AI to pull out insights and action items and personalization. So you could theoretically ask a question, like how has my personality changed over the past 10 years based on my Facebook posts or something like that.
Wow.
And we thought that would really appeal to people's like, everyone's kind of curious about how they've changed over time and how they're perceived and stuff. So we thought that would be kind of cool. Turns out that product was like interesting, but the data was pretty static. So you would upload it, and it would just it wouldn't grow, and it wouldn't evolve.
Because it's looking at past data. It's
Exactly.
not, yeah, okay, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I haven't posted today, so it doesn't know who I am today. It knows who I was yesterday, which is pretty cool, and you can definitely get pretty far with personalizing a product that way. But
Why don't you call it Storybook and not Facebook? Like, sorry, Storybook, not Facebook.
I love it.
Sorry.
But I mean, it's
Probably
the
you
thing,
can relaunch it and go for it. Storybook.
yeah, the IP is for sale.
Is it?
But I mean, yeah, we had that learning where like it wasn't evolving, the data and the knowledge base wasn't evolving with the person, with the user. It required too much effort to kind of keep it up to date. And around the same time, we got accepted into Techstars. We were like really thinking seriously about whether to double down or whether to pivot. And this is why like I love the luck surface area and serendipity of like the world. It's like I literally got out the shower and I was walking to my room and I see this strange man in my house. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, who are you? And this guy's like, hey, I'm like this guy's friend. We had someone staying in our basement for $500 a month, which is like 10,000 rand a month to stay in our little basement, no windows in San Francisco. And this was his friend who he had told he could use our laundry machine, which they weren't actually meant to. He wasn't meant to be in our house. So I was like, here's this guy. And he was building an AI wearable, which is what I'm wearing now around my neck. And his whole thesis was context needs to be pretty much real time. And we need to be capturing audio. We need to be capturing like people's experiences, not just kind of what they've done in the past, but like where are they right now, what's happening right now. So he had this data source that was pretty interesting to us. He launched it on Twitter. It blew up, got like 500,000 impressions, made like $16,000 in the first week or whatever. And he came to us and he was like, hey, you guys are building this app. You've got these data sources. I've got this product. I've got customers waiting for an app. Like, let's work together. And I literally just met him in my house. Like, that's ridiculous. And we ended up working together, got on really well. And that's kind of how we ended up building Compass, which is the current project, which pulls like a lot of, the components, the elements from the first project, but is like a very, very different product.
That's really cool. So tell us about it. It's hanging around your neck. And is it recording us right now?
It is. Yeah. So it transcribes all conversations and it takes those raw transcripts and it uses AI to summarize, pull out action items, automatically remind you about things that might be time sensitive. For example, if I say, I'm going to send you that pitch deck later today, I just said that, I'm going to get a reminder about that.
And the IP for Storybook, you're going to send that. Don't forget to send that to me.
And yeah, that's kind of the product. It's we have a bunch of other features on top of that to make it more useful, but the essence of it is we take ambient audio data, we passively collect it, and we turn it into business value.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very different. So one of the first things I do is like, I think it's just the age we live in now, right? Where data is such a sensitive topic. What if you are sitting at the table and someone says, oh, but I don't want to be recorded because data sensitivity is such a hot topic. How do you solve that problem?
Yeah, it's definitely tough and we get asked that a decent amount. I guess it comes down to a pretty interesting philosophical question, which is like, who owns the data around you? Who owns the data that's being created around you? So like, I'm in a conversation and there is some data being created and part of it is being created by me, part of it is being created by you. That is like, is that shared data? Is what I'm saying my data and what you're saying your data? Like, how do you actually divide data that's being created in kind of like a shared context? Which is like, that's pretty abstract. The like simple answer is, don't be an asshole and like don't record people when they don't want to be recorded. But also like explain, this is something that's important to you. If you get a lot of value, you can ask people nicely and be like, hey, look, I have a bad memory. This thing saves my life. Is it cool? Like if I leave it on? And what we found is like people generally forget within 10 minutes and they don't care. Some people do care and then, just use your discretion, but definitely an interesting topic.
I'm curious to being a product manager, we generally do software, but can you tell me the experience of now coupling that with some hardware that you've got there? Like what's in that piece that's around your neck, and just the production line in San Francisco, like, putting this all together.
Yeah, for sure. So I got a bit of hardware exposure at Yoko, which was my first experience, like, yeah, having to get stuff certified and waiting and not just being able to like ship updates. You actually have to physically ship updates sometimes. I mean, this product is not like an invention. The actual hardware, it's a microphone that transmits audio via Bluetooth. So all it really is a simple chip. It has like a Bluetooth module so it can connect to your phone, and it has a battery that can last 30 hours. So that's like the essence of the hardware. We manually assembled the first 200 units ourselves. Martinez, the guy who I found in my house, he is like a cracked hardware engineer. So he designed it and he assembled the first like 100 units himself. Now, obviously, we have to be able to fill like thousands of orders a month. So we're scaling up. We're working with the manufacturer actually in Europe, and might move it to other places for cost reasons. But yeah, I mean, we're now for the first time going to actually have a proper manufacturing setup and not just like us at random like offices assembling like little units.
Amazing. So by the way, the load shedding problems in South Africa has subsided. Maybe we can find a factory for you here back home.
Yes, let's go.
So Renier, I'd love to dive into your thoughts on building productizing something like this. And obviously, the first thing I'm thinking about, how do you price this? How do you position this to the public? What are your thoughts, and what would you ask Shai about how he's doing that?
No, I think what's really interesting and really counts in their favor is, the cost of what they sell the device at, which is $99, right?
Yeah.
$99. In American context, that's pretty cheap. Like that's like, a meal at a fancy restaurant, or not even fancy, like middle level, or it's McDonald's for the family or whatever.
Yeah.
But the manufacturing cost of this is almost similar. There's not the differential of what it costs of what things cost there compared to what this costs to people isn't the same all over the world. So if you were to build something like this in South Africa, I mean, it would be more expensive for people. But not only that, you obviously have a much smaller market. So when you build a product like this and you launch it in the US, there's literally millions of people that would just go, "Hey, this looks interesting. Let me try it." So it's all about, can you effectively reach them and distribute and get it to them with something that works and can add value. And I think it's super exciting, the fact that you can launch a B2C product like that and actually make some proper sales. I mean, Shai, do you want to share, like, how's it been going on the sales side?
For sure. Yeah, I forgot to ask my team like how much I can share, but like we're selling
Going
a
well.
lot selling a lot of units. And like I will say what's been interesting is we're selling not to like tech nerd early adopters. That was maybe our first launch, was mostly that type, but actually like regular people across, in the Midwest, like random audiences, some older people, 50 to 65, we've got a decent chunk. So I mean it's definitely product that can like appeal to a mainstream market and not just kind of these like nerdy tech people in San Francisco, which was my biggest concern up front. And then the price point does seem to be working. We haven't validated that the subscription price works across different audiences. That's going to be the next thing. We validated that it works in the initial group, but people have different expectations, so we're going to see that in the coming weeks.
So Shai, any orders from Washington DC for people in their 80s struggling with memory?
Biden is not yet a Compass customer. We should definitely send him one though.
Will be a good use case.
Imagine. Yeah, because I'm thinking as a product manager, Shai, like the amount of user interviews and interactions I'm having on a daily basis, it's hard to capture all of that stuff. Like there's a lot of golden nuggets that I'm listening to every day. It's hard to remember it all and to capture it all, put it in a good place that I can reference it and actually like utilize, synthesize all that data points that I'm getting. There's a use case. Maybe go find some product managers in the hallways.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly what got me to use it daily. Initially, I was using it for user interviews, like you can then like select the summaries of all the different conversations you had, and
Nice.
in one tap without leaving the app, export it to Notion, Coda, whatever, and share a link with your team. We're gonna build in share links as well, but right now I just export it in like nicely formatted Markdown, send it to people. So yeah, definitely interesting for product.
Yeah. Cool. I love it. So something about the difference between South Africa and I can only assume what it's like in San Francisco is the VC funding market, right? You guys were able to go through Techstars, right? Can you just tell us about that application process and some lessons about having to go into such a big thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Techstars process was really cool. Like the cool thing about Techstars is they have these pretty small localized kind of like little units. So you've got like Techstars New York, Techstars LA, Techstars Detroit, and they operate like small funds. So just like if you were trying to raise from a small fund, you actually like would want to probably form a relationship with the individuals and stuff. So even though it's a huge, I mean, they're the most active pre-seed or seed stage investors in the world, I believe. But you know, I'm just meeting with like, you know, Monica from this one branch. Like it's a real person. It's like one or two people that you need to kind of like have a relationship with. And so they were very cool, very human. They liked what we were doing. They also were very understanding that we're early and we're probably going to pivot. And I never felt once like any pressure to double down on a specific vertical or, you know, they were very open to us just going through the idea maze and finding what we wanted to work on.
So Shai, did you get in for everything Bagel or for Compass?
Everything Bagel.
Okay, wow. And then obviously was working this now in a bit of a different direction. They're fully supportive of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think our name
Okay.
changed 3 times during the Techstars batch. Like we constantly had to update all their materials and they were very cool about that.
And then their program, they give you money as well as support, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
very
they
similar
they have
to
like
Y
a
Combinator.
exactly. They have a mentor system where you do kind of like like speed dating for mentors. So you have I think it's a week, like literally 5 days, you meet 150 people, and then you kind of like both pick each other, and you get to like have this mentor relationship where you'll meet weekly. And one of the mentors is actually now an advisor in our company. And so yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Okay, and did you get any other investors on board as well, or was the Techstars the only investor up until now?
We raised from a few small angels, so like
Okay.
smart people working at NVIDIA and kind of like people who could help us navigate and keep up with like what's happening in AI. And then yeah, I guess we've just kind of closed a few smaller angels and we'll probably bring in more like bigger institutional funds pretty soon.
As soon as sales starts pumping, then you're gonna have to scale quickly,
Yeah, for sure.
which will be a fun new challenge. Some new things to learn.
Absolutely.
So on the back of that story, I would like to hear from you. What is your top tip for a South African founder wanting to build a tech startup in the USA?
It's a good question. I would say don't overthink it and just come to the US on a tourist visa and everything else will like sort itself out. So just make sure you have enough money to be here for like 1 month or 2 weeks or 2 months and just rock up and find your people, increase your luck surface area by like going to events and stuff. But I think that's the biggest thing is just like you don't have to have the visa figured out. You don't have to have the idea. You don't have to have the funding. Like just rock up and like cool things will happen if you do want to be here. Cool things will definitely also happen wherever you are if you're like open to them. And yeah.
Yeah, we I had this lady founder that joined the podcast, and she started like cleaning at, I think it no, it wasn't YC, it was at one of the tech stars or whatever it was, I can't remember. And she was like cleaning up after events and stuff. She was just earning a bit of pocket money just to keep her stay longer, just earning a bit of pocket money while she started figuring out what to do and how to go about it. So have you ever thought about having to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you're not allowed to work without a work visa. But yeah, I mean, there were times I literally left the country for a month, worked remotely from Mexico City, like for some random startup that I met here, saved up, went back to the US. Like they're definitely definitely
There's
ways.
ways.
Yeah, there are ways for sure.
Cool. Renier, anything before we go into the lightning round?
Yeah, just like here, Shai, what is happening with Compass in the next 6 months? Like, what are you working on? What are you working towards? What are the plans?
Yeah, so the big piece right now is providing more value with like doing more with the transcriptions. So we're launching a feature called workflows, which is pretty exciting to me. It's like maybe you don't just want summaries and action items, maybe you want AI to tell you how to reframe negative thoughts into positive thoughts. Maybe you want AI to tell you like, how you can improve your pitch. And so we're giving users the ability to pick from like all these templates. And once a day or once an hour, you can actually just go and kind of get feedback. You can fact check yourself. You can do all sorts of, you can have a food log. You can draft content like tweets, LinkedIn posts based on your life. In future, you'll be able to make TikToks about your day, all AI generated TikToks about your day, just from like passively wearing this necklace. So we're literally doubling down on doing the craziest shit possible with your transcripts. And that's like from a product perspective, what's exciting to me. And then from a business perspective, it's just, now we have to fulfill thousands of orders a month. That's like a new challenge, like manufacture and deliver. We've got to find, the right audience, not just everyone. Like we want to actually find our people. And that's the focus. It's going to be a pretty crazy next 6 months, I think.
Sounds so exciting. Like really, that sounds so cool. Like what I'm loving about the space where I'm working at now is like the opportunity to like dive into stuff. And you must be like, you wake up every day going, I'm amped, right? I can sense that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very like high energy. Spirits are very high. It's been tough. There's been moments where like, yeah, it's been really tough to kind of like find motivation. But right now, like things feel like they're working, and everyone's pretty excited to continue.
Amazing. Cool. So quick lightning round, two, three questions. First thing that comes to mind, please share, and we'll wrap up from there. So the first question, besides the USA, your whole journey, what is the best piece of advice you've either received or learned that you feel the next founder should pick up on?
I think honestly, work with good people. Work with people you trust. Work with people you like. Don't ever compromise on that. And I think that will just lead to more success and like a happier work life.
Nice. I like that a lot. A book recommendation for any founder or builder out there.
I personally liked The Richest Man in Babylon. That's like doesn't really help you build a company, but it's just a cool way to think about like personal finance. And it's told in a really cool way. It's like short, easy to read, just like solid, timeless foundational like principles, like save 20% of your salary, that kind of stuff, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't do now. But it was a cool read, and it's kind of like good to know.
Nice. And then lastly, if Shai could have a billboard in San Francisco, what would it say?
Buy a compass, compasswearable.com.
All in.
Nice. He's all in. Cool. Well, Shai, thank you very much for joining us. It was great to have you on the podcast, telling us the stories all the way from San Francisco. It's really nice to see a South African doing some great things overseas. So keep it up, and
Crushing
really
it.
looking forward to watching the next 6 months.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. It was really cool to chat.
Oh, and one more thing. If you want to buy a compass, Shah is coming to South Africa. You can stick it in his suitcase. So is the option still on the website, Shah? If you go,
I,
if you ship it, Shah shoot the suitcase.
yeah, if you make your location South Africa, Shai's suitcase should pop up as a shipping option. So
Oh,
Okay,
really?
right.
I thought you were joking. That's so cool. All right. Well, I'll go order one right now. Thanks very much, Shai. All the best.
great, thanks.
Okay, Bobby.